Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited that you're here. Tonight is a very special night because we are finally able to have our interview with New York Times bestselling author Alka Joshi who wrote the Henna Artist trilogy, and we're going to talk to her tonight about her newest book, the Perfumist of Paris. And I'm going to be joined by my friends Kalley from Kneedles and Life and Leyla from Leylalicious to talk to Alka. We have talked to her before. We talked to her for The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, which was the second book in this trilogy. So if you missed that and you want to check that out at a later time, you can find that in my Instagram videos tab, or if you're watching this on replay, I'll link it for you in the description on YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and get Leyla and Kalley on. So let's go ahead and get them up here. Okay. And it looks like Alka is in as well, so I'm going to go ahead and get her on as well. Hi, Leyla.
Hey there.
Hey, Kalley.
Hey.
Oh, there she is. Yay. Hi. How are you?
Oh, good. So you guys, I'm not wearing my usual glasses because I forgot them. I'm down in LA visiting my dad, and so I mean, I'm not used to these, and without them, you're all a blur. So I have to put these weird ones on.
And I love how you always have like the statement eyewear. Like, first question of the night: how many pairs of glasses do you own? Because I feel like I see you in a different pair all the time.
So I have about 6 pairs. Yeah, yes. But here's the thing. So I don't have prescription, and I just buy readers. And I get them all from this one online company. So everybody's always asking me, where do you get your glasses? And I tell them, and I think they're making a lot of money off of my referrals.
You gotta sign up for that affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, where do you get them?
It's 𝘂𝑙𝑜�L, 𝘂𝑒LOOL.com. I think it's a Chinese company. So
interesting. Well, I always love your eyewear. You do such a fabulous job.
Thanks.
So welcome back. We are super excited to have you back. It's been a minute. Obviously, there's been a whole book, and now it sounds like another half a book on top of that, since it seems like you're almost through writing the next book, right?
Right. Yes, Kristen. Yes, I am exhausted. Yes. If that's what you're asking, I'm exhausted.
Oh, man. I bet. That's probably, there's a lot of traveling and research involved with that, but I think we'll try and get to that a little bit later. But I just wanted to just say hi and welcome. Hi, Kalley and Leyla.
Hey. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so just to jump right in, last time you were here, you were discussing, I was telling Kalley and Leyla earlier that every time I go to say The Perfumist of Paris, I keep like messing up and saying The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, because that's what we talked about the last time, and I don't know, it's just like in my head. But yeah, so this is definitely the one we're talking about. So for those who are watching that have not read this yet, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah. So in The Henna Artist, first of all, hi, everybody. So in The Henna Artist, I had written a lot of pages that never made it into the final book that you read. And a lot of those pages had information and scenes with Radha and with Malik. So Malik's scenes went into The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. And then I thought, I have all this material for Radha, and she doesn't have any presence at all in book number 2, because that's all taking place in Jaipur and Shimla while she is in Paris. And I had this all mapped out, you see, so I know where people are at what time of the stories. So Secret Keeper of Jaipur is 1969. Radha is already up in Paris. And so I thought, well, writing about Radha's story would be a dream, because I knew that she was going to go into the perfume industry. She's in Paris. She's surrounded by scent. And why wouldn't she go into it when she has all of these, you know, amazing experiences behind her? And one of those experiences is that she's a South Asian woman, which means she has been raised all around these scents, like the scent of turmeric and garlic and onions and, you know, cloves and cinnamon and, you know, cardamom. And then, you know, she goes outside of her house and she's going to smell petrol and marigolds and, you know, all kinds of things. And so Radha already has a head start in being a perfumer because she knows how to discern many different scents, hundreds of scents already. And so I thought, okay, so Radha is a perfumer. I know that from the first book, I knew she was going to marry Pierre. She was going to elope to Paris because that's just how she rolls. And then she was going to have two girls, Asha and Shanti. And she's actually loving her life up there. She's loving, you know, being there. She's loving being a mom. But then she finds this wonderful career. She just thought at first she was going to start in this small perfumery and with Antoine, and that she was going to learn how to recommend scents for different women who walked in. But that develops into a career where she is scouted basically by Delphine, who is a master perfumer. And Delphine says, you come work for me. I think you have talent. So then that's kind of how the whole story developed. And so this is a story about Radha in the crosshairs between a career she loves and a husband who wants her to stay at home and just take care of the children. And then, of course, this is also the story of Radha being, I don't want to say pounced upon, but being visited by the baby whom she left behind in 1956 in the henna artist. And she had to adopt him out because she was only 13 when she gave birth. And now he is 17 years old. And so I wanted that sort of story to come full circle. How does Radha feel about having Nikki in her life again? Is she ready for that? And is she ready to introduce him to her family, her husband, her two daughters, and her mother-in-law?
I love that. And, you know, honestly, I don't know if you recall this, but in our the last time you were on and for the Secret Keeper of Jaipur, we were talking a lot about like essential oils, and you were kind of giving us a little bit of insight into this book and your research for it, because we were talking about various scents and things like that. And I think like that was in the back of my mind. I don't know about Kalley and Leyla, but that was in the back of my mind the entire time I was reading this. Like, and I loved exploring that whole aspect in the book with Radha, you know, and like the smell of the air after it rains, the petrichor. Yeah. Like I never knew there was a word for that until I read your book.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that petrichor, you know, there were two Australians who came to India and they discovered this scent, and so they named it petrichor. But in India, it's always been known as mitti ither, which is the attar of soil.
That makes sense. And yeah, discovered it, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
you
were talking. I know. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that you do such a good job writing in a way that like I felt like I could actually smell the smells. Did you guys feel that way?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And were there are there scents in your lives which recall memories? You know, are there scents like the moment you smell them, you go, oh, that takes me back to when I was 5 and I was flying a kite or whatever. Do you guys have scents like that in your life as well?
Totally.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I think I associate that more with also certain foods. Like certain foods will have certain smells and it'll remind you of certain, you know, whether it's a home cooked meal or what have you. But yeah, I think the scent's a lot.
Yeah. So so that's why I really wanted people to sort of smell the scents as they're reading the book, because what I'm hoping is that as they read, they'll also have scent memories about their own lives, which I think is the whole idea of scent. It's really a memory bank.
It really is. That's a really fabulous way of thinking of it too. And I know that you mentioned that in the book too. And I just thought, wow, that's really like on point with everything with it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So the last time we talked to you, and you were kind of going over some of what we could expect from this book. There were some details that we discussed that didn't quite make it into this one, or at least not that I noticed. And so I'm curious, like, is there anything that you really wanted in this book that for one reason or another you weren't able to put in?
No, I don't think so. I think I put in as much as I could, and I tried to develop the research material so that it could weave into the story without making it seem like it's a, you know, like a knowledge dump. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, the story flows, but then also we learn how Radha is mixing different scents together. And, you know, things like when she's betrayed by her best friend, betrayal has a scent, you know, happiness has a scent, joy has a scent. And I think if we look in our own lives, we could probably also figure out what those scents would smell like for us in our experience.
Oh, just a real quick NJ girl. We're gonna get to that, I promise. Okay. So, oh shoot, I had a question. Were there any scent combinations? Like you definitely talk about a lot of different combinations in the book. Were there any, like, first and foremost, how did you come up with those combinations? And were there any, do you have any favorites?
You know, okay, so when I was doing the research, I realized that there were certain patterns in scent. You want to combine a citrus with a woody scent, with an earthy scent, like, you know, soil and things like that, and then a flower scent. So almost all fragrances have those 4 categories in them. So citrus could be bergamot, it could be, you know, lime, grapefruit, and then you've got your floral essences, you know, your rose and your jasmine and, you know, hibiscus, and then with the woody scents, you have your pine and cedar and, you know, I don't know, walnut or whatever. And then your earthy scents are like the 𝗵𝘃𝗏𝘃 and, you know, things that smell like leaves on a forest, you know, floor, that kind of thing. So with every scent that I sort of created in the book, I would try to combine one of each of those categories together and sort of like think in my head, okay, what does a citrus smell like when you combine it with this? So, yeah.
Were you able to smell any of those combinations by using different essential oils or anything?
No, I actually didn't. Like, you know, for writing the book, I didn't actually put any of those scents together. But in my imagination, I did. And, you know, this is the cool thing, right? With master perfumers, they create perfumes in their imagination, in their mind. They're not even sitting around with a bunch of vials in front of them. They just have memorized so many scents that they can say, you know, I'm going to put 30% bergamot and 20% a pine, and then this percent of that and this percent of that. And they just kind of put it all together like that in their head, which I just think is remarkable.
Yeah, it's kind of like cooking,
really.
Yeah.
It's kind of like cooking, I think, that lets you kind of like, oh, that sounds good together.
Yeah. And, you know, okay, so here's the other thing. Everybody I spoke to, I went to New York City, I went to Paris, I went to Lisbon, I went to Grasse in the southeastern part of France. Everybody I spoke to loves working with scent. So it was almost like this is a profession. If you want to really enjoy your life, this is a great profession for you. It's almost like chefs, right? Chefs have this innate ability to blend different ingredients together and make something delicious. And they love their job. Like, I don't know any chef who doesn't love their job. And then there are the sommeliers who are able to tell you what kind of wine to drink if you're looking for fruity or earthy or, you know, whatever. And I think each of these people who works really with their senses, it has has enormous happiness in their job. I think we should all quit our jobs and just go do one of these 3 things.
Just sit and smell pretty sensual.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
I'm advocating everybody quit your jobs.
I mean, I can do that. I wouldn't find that a bad thing or hardship. Okay, there's a few comments I just want to get out there. Let's see. Sassy Knit says that I'm about 2/3 of the way through The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. Loving it. Very unique story and characters. And Air the Obsessed there says they smelled magical in her imagination too. And then Why Baron Easy Keys says our book club just made our own perfume with essential oils and it was so fun. Oh, I bet that was really cool.
I hope more people will do that. You know, I put a perfume party recipe in the book, hoping that a lot of book clubs that get together will use that activity as a fun kind of thing that they can do. Because
I think that's so fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take a lot. You can buy everything on Amazon. It's fabulous.
Just want to go play in all the scents. So speaking of perfumes, you mentioned previously that your friend had created a scent for called 𝗏𝘗𝘕 after you wrote The Henna Artist. And at the time when we talked to you the last time, you said that while you were still writing this book, you thought there might be a fragrance released in conjunction with the book. Did that materialize?
Well, yes. If you remember, and I didn't bring it with me to LA, but Leylanur, so LILANUR.com, the co-founder of that is Paul Austin. And, you know, with all the research that I did, he was super, super helpful. He put me in touch with master perfumers, and he was just a joy to talk to. And at the time, he was putting this perfume brand together, Leylanur. And it has 7 ingredients, 7 different fragrances, and each of the fragrances is using a major ingredient from India. So his other co-founder partner is Indian, and she runs something called Good Earth in India. So the 2 of them put this thing together. So when the Perfumist of Paris went on to the printer, I said, hey, I've got 6 months here to create something. So I said, Paul, would you like to collaborate with me on the launch of the Perfumist of Paris? And he said, I would love it. So he had developed a discovery set of 7 vials of these fragrances. And for each of the events that I had for the launch, he actually provided 20 free samples, 20 free kits.
Awesome.
I know, it's awesome. It's awesome.
What was that like for you, just to be able to like see that kind of like that inspiration and playing off of one another?
It's so much fun because it's very creative. He said, okay, let's go to your book and let's see what parts of your book we can pull to have people talk about a certain fragrance. So he created a piece, a marketing piece inside the discovery box that has quotes from my book for each of the fragrances that are in there. Not like, here, like he's got one called Gull Rouge, which is a rose, rose. Yeah. And because gulab in India means rose. So the phrase that he used from my book is the one where the Kama Sutra recommends that people perfume their entire houses with roses because it encourages the act of love.
Hey.
So.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think that's really cool. I think Kalley's going to take the next question here.
Yeah, so in the book, Radha says, I've let Pierre think that I agree with him on most issues. It's just easier that way.
Yeah.
Were you writing this? Do you think it's a form of feminine suppression, like a device women use to navigate a world where their opinions and views aren't as validated as men's? Or was it just like a pick your battles mentality with Radha and Pierre?
Kalley, I think it's a bit of both. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about what you just put together is that I do think I remember my mother used to do this with my father. She would pick her battles, and for the battles that weren't as big, she would just let him get it. You know, she would just let him win. And I think, though, that when we do that, I do think that we compromise our integrity. I do think that we as women are more pliable that way than men are. I think men are a lot less willing to say, oh, okay, well, I'll just take a back seat for this, you know? And so I think women over time have learned to negotiate. And part of the negotiation is, okay, I will let you have 75% of what you want, but I'm going to fight you on this other 25%. And I guess, you know, it works for a lot of people, but I feel like if we do that, then we are not 100% true to ourselves.
That's
Very
true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Like, you know, in the book, Radha and Pierre both cook, right? So that's really, it's wonderful that Pierre cooks a couple of nights and she cooks a couple of nights. But when it comes time to attend to a sick child and they're both at work, it's automatically assumed that Radha will be the one to go get the child. It's automatically assumed somehow that the woman will be the one to always take care of the kids if there's something going on. Like his job is more important. Well, you know what? In today's day and age, I have run into so many women who make more money than their husbands, and they still accept the fact that they should also be taking care of the children if they're sick. And I just think that's not fair. That's not right. You know,
I was about to say 45 years later, we're still fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like in your experiences, you're all a lot younger than I am, but in your experiences, do you find that there are women still struggling with, you know, the issue of, is it my responsibility always, or can you guys share this responsibility? You know, is everything down to me? Am I the one who always has to make the grocery list? Like, can you make a grocery list sometime and just take it upon yourself to go get the stuff?
Yeah, I think that, like, honestly, at least in my situation, like my husband is very good about working with me. I feel like we balance our load very well. I do feel like, you know, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I don't have a career. But I feel like if I did, he would be right there with me working on it. And I think that a lot has changed in the mentality of men in this generation. Kalley, Leyla, you guys weigh in.
Yeah, I kind of have
I was going to say.
Same situation as you, Kristen, but when we were both working full-time outside of the home, we shared all the responsibilities, but I'm not sure that's normal, if that makes sense.
I say I agree. My boys are older now, and my husband and I both worked. And even when they were little, I was grateful to have my mom help us out a lot. So she took care of them while we were at work, so that helped. But it has always been, and I think it's just something you set up when you're first married, that if you both share the duties of what you need to do, then it kind of becomes a co-parenting thing, and like getting the chores done or doing laundry. It's like whoever has, if you're working from home, if one of us is working from home or what have you, that person does it.
Yeah.
It's not a like only I do it or only he does, you know, it's a balance thing, and getting that balance.
Communication.
I feel like this is one of those areas where like the internet and technology has actually played a really positive role in changing the mindset of men. In fact, that, like, you know, there's so much media that is women-based media, and when it comes out, you know, and our stories are being told, they can't just ignore them. And when there's so many people telling those same stories over and over, it's like, well, maybe we are the problem.
So I think, like, okay, for the 40 years, okay, so when I first graduated from college, I remember going to one of the alumni events they put together, and there was a woman there. She must have been 70 years old, and she was wearing this beautiful red suit, and she was our keynote speaker. I do not remember what her name was, but I remember very clearly one thing that she said. She said, until husbands start making the grocery list and going to get the food, not just going to get the food, but until they start doing that, we are not equal. And she said, when we are in a social setting and one of our kids starts crying, until the husband is the first one to pick up that child and take care of that problem, we are not equal. And it's just, it always has stayed with me because I still see these dramas played out every single day. I see the kid fall down at a picnic, and who runs to them but the mother? You know, sometimes I see a dad doing it, but mostly, even in my house, I'm the one who makes the grocery list. And here I am talking about women who should have been emancipated 50 years ago, you know? So it's
Picking your battles, right?
Yeah, it's like, you know, why does my husband not think we both eat? Both of us eat. We eat several times a day. Why can't he just say, you know what? I think we should eat this, this, and this week. So I will go get da 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 da. No, he just says, honey, what do we need? Ah!
Alka, can I ask you, do you go grocery shopping with your husband? Or do you just go grocery shopping?
Sometimes we go together, but okay. Mostly I will make the list and he goes grocery shopping. Because you know what, my husband is, we live in a small town, and we have the one grocery store, and it's this kind of small town grocery store, but they have a lot of, you know, good stuff. And my husband loves to walk to the grocery store. So I just let him. I don't even want to go grocery shopping. I'm like, okay, you really want to go? Here are some things that we need. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. See you later.
I'm with you on that.
Well, one thing I know my husband and I have started to do is, like, instead of sitting and writing that list, we'll text each other. Because, like, it'll be like something that I remember, like, okay, we need this, this, and this. So I'll just text him. So that way, if like one of us remembers, so we don't forget.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to do it. Yeah.
I tell my husband he's my external hard drive. I can't remember anything, so I'm like, hey, I'm telling you this now so that I don't forget later.
Really? Oh.
Wow. It's terrible. I really am. Let me catch up on some comments here. Era was saying, although I agree that many women still do this, I'm finding a lot of dads stepping up even when the mom is okay to be the go-to. Yeah, I think that the tide is definitely turning, I think, for sure. Yeah. 𝗫𝗏 Book Club says, I agree. I struggled a lot with this. I'm happy to say my husband was able to adapt and we now share responsibilities. That's great. And then Era's back with, I think some husbands enjoy it. Mine does. I'll gladly send him. Dang, girl, I don't want to go to the grocery.
Okay. And you know, but I do have to say my husband does all the laundry. Yeah, that's really nice. That is very nice. You know what? Like, the laundry comes out weird sometimes, you know, like, I want to bleach the towel. The white stuff should be white and it should be bleached, right? Yeah. And he mixes it up. And so, you know, I get these towels that are kind of bluish or they're kind of dark or whatever, you know, and I just think, okay, you know what? At least he's doing the laundry.
At least he's doing it. He's helping out.
Exactly.
That's some pieces my husband helps, but I still. Oh. Cats and Bees brings up a good point. She said, my husband helps, but I still feel self-inflicted guilt. Girl, you gotta let that go.
Let that go.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Leyla, I'll let you take next question here.
Yes. Okay. Who do you think Radha felt betrayed the most by, Pierre or Matilda, and why? And then it's a two-part question. Can her friendship with Matilda be salvaged to regain the closeness they once shared after everything that happened?
So I don't think that it can be salvaged. And I'll tell you why. I do think that she feels more betrayed by Pierre than Mathilde, you know, when she finds the underwear. Because you know, she's trying to negotiate this whole thing with him. She's trying to make him understand why the job is important to her and how it's the thing that she owns all by herself. She doesn't own the kids by herself. She doesn't own the house by herself, but that career is something that is just hers. And he's not listening, and then he does this thing. where I just think, you know, that's his way of saying fuck you, right? Like, you know, I don't want to talk about this business anymore. So I think that's why she is more upset with him than with 𝗵𝗃𝗐. I think with 𝗵𝗃𝗐, what's happened is that over the years, she's known 𝗵𝗃𝗐 since she was, what, 14 years old. And with 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏, she grew up with 𝗵𝗃𝗐. You know, 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 was her protector at the boarding school. And then 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 is the one who helps her get connected to Antoine, and she gets this job at the perfumery. But I do think that Radha's life has moved on. She has a career now, she has her girls, she has a whole life plan. And 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 doesn't. 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 is still a girl, basically. She has money, so she's never had to really step up and, you know, do stuff for herself. And now her mother, who never really spent much time with her, relies on her because she's having dementia. So I think that that was one of those relationships where it was probably time to let go. And I think we all have these in our lives. We have relationships that we've had for a really long time with friends. And I don't think they're serving us anymore, but we just still keep them going because we always have, you know, there's no reason not to. But you know, in my life, I feel like I have let go of certain people over time, and I think that's okay. I think we feel guilty about it, but I think that what's happening between Radha and 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 is Radha's moved on, and she really is not that best friend of 𝗵𝗃𝗐𝗏 that she used to be, and that's okay. It's okay to just move on.
I think the important thing to understand with any relationship is that, you know, it takes two to make it fizzle out. So yeah. There's that.
Yeah.
𝗂𝗏 said, after all, he's French regarding Antoine. That was funny. So I realized I skipped a question, so I'm going to go back. What made you choose Mayonnaise Olympia to inspire Radha's first solo project?
When I was 16, my parents took me to Paris for the first time, and the year was 1974. So that's the year of the novel. And I do remember very clearly going to the 𝗔𝗹𝗏𝗄 and being exposed to all these impressionist painters. And one of those was the Olympia. I just remember thinking, well, who is this woman in the painting? And who are all these women in the paintings? Like, why do we not know anything about these women? You know, it's like the Mona Lisa. Everybody loves the Mona Lisa, but we have no idea who that woman was. There's a lot of speculation, but nobody knows. Why not? I think that these women were as important to the success of a painting as the painter was. So, you know, I think that she needed her due. And so that's why I wanted to put her front and center. And the more I found out about the model, the more I think agitated I got about what has happened to a lot of these women. The common, you know, art historian will say that she was a prostitute. Well, in reality, she was never a prostitute. She was just a poor painter. You know, poor in terms of poverty, not in terms of her skill. In terms of her skill, she made it to the salon before Manet did. But Manet had all the wealth, and so he had all day long to paint. He didn't have to do anything else. Just like Monet, just like Degas, you know, these guys are, you know, having all kinds of leisure time to paint. She didn't. And so in order to pay for her paint and her canvases, she modeled for all these other painters.
That's amazing that you told her story in there. I was so glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I just think, you know, we do such a disservice to women when we, you know, say something like, oh, you know, well, she was just a prostitute. And then other art historians just pick that up, and that's what they keep saying. It's just, they just keep promoting it. So now everybody thinks, oh yeah, she was a prostitute. So those kind of things.
One thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say those kind of things infuriate me about how women have been sort of, you know, put on the back burner or relegated to a certain role, which really wasn't theirs to begin with.
Well, I think that's one of the greatest things about your books and about all historical fiction that's really gotten very mainstream lately, is that it's all about telling the untold stories of women in history. And I think that that is so important. And I so appreciate you digging into Olympia and finding out about the model's story and sharing that with us, because I think that you're right. That's incredibly important. It's infuriating, and we got to change it. So we got to start telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
All right, I'll ask the next one. The inspiration behind Sheila's fragrance line is Forgotten Woman, a concept which unfortunately resonates even almost 50 years after the story is set. And in the book it says, is that erasure of us something other people do to us, or do we women do it to ourselves? Why do you think we still struggle with this concept today?
Because I think that, well, you know, I'll just tell you my personal history. When I worked in ad agencies, I thought I was doing really good work, and my clients really liked working with me. But then when I would ask for raises, they would say, oh, you know, we ran out of that fund this year. Or they would say, you know, the guy next to you who's making more, he's just more talented than you are. You know, and after a while, you start believing these things, and that is a disservice we do to ourselves. So I think we are complicit in sometimes erasing ourselves. And that is something that I wanted to communicate in the novel. We don't have to absorb the ideas that other people have about us. You know, we can fight back and say, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about, but that's not me. Now, at the age of, you know, 30, I could not do that. I didn't have the courage to be able to say, hey, don't talk to me like that. I'm worth more than that. And I think that if you're constantly being told, well, you're not good enough, or you're not all that, I think that we begin to believe it. And that is erasure coming from both sides, from outside and from inside.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard to speak up for yourself when you don't even believe it about yourself first. So there's a lot of that like internal work you have to do first, which is hard.
Yeah. Can you see that I put a lot of things in my novels that I have struggled with?
That's good.
I think that's amazing that you do that. I think like it speaks and it comes across loud and clear. It's what we need.
Yeah.
And 𝗂𝘗 says that's difficult as a young professional, depending on a job or employment. I think it's definitely can be made more difficult situationally, especially if, you know, we're still unfortunately in a position where you speak up and then all of a sudden tomorrow you don't have a job. You know, I feel like that's still very all too real.
Oh yeah. I remember once talking about, you know, telling a boss that, you know, I really deserved more money. And what was it that they said? Oh, they started calling me a troublemaker because I went to my boss and he had nothing for me. He said, well, that's just the way it is. So I went to the personnel manager and I said, you know, what can I do in this situation? Because personnel managers are supposed to help employees, right? And she said, well, you know, he has already told me that you are a troublemaker, so we are not inclined to believe you. I mean, I just thought, oh my God, I don't know how to ask for help, right? So yeah, I think that sometimes we get branded, and it's very hard to fight back. It's just hard.
For sure. Hang on, Leyla disappeared on us, and I'm not sure where she went. So I'm trying to get her back on. Yeah, I'm just really glad that you speak up about this stuff in your books, because I still feel like there's a huge part of the population that doesn't know that they can speak up for themselves. And I think that it's important to empower women, and I think that your books do a phenomenal job at that.
Yeah. Does anybody want to talk about the adoption issue?
Yeah.
So So what happened is that right after the Hannah Artist came out, you know, and I'm doing all these book clubs. And by the way, Kristen, you know, I've done like 930 Zooms now with book clubs.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. But right after that, all of these people in book clubs, and then when we went in person, whenever I was delivering a keynote, somebody would come up and talk to me about their adoption stories. And there's so many of them. I would have birth mothers come up to me, adoptees and adoptive parents who are all worried that, you know, once their child finds their birth parent, that, you know, they're not going to love them as much anymore. So I kept hearing these stories, and the background of these stories was always a lot of guilt and shame, especially from the birth mother side. And I just started realizing, wow, you know, these people need help. They need to be acknowledged for, I think, a sacrifice that they made giving up a child. But also they need to be supported to say that, you know, you made the best decision at that time that you could. Don't spend the rest of your life being guilty about it or shamed about it. My heart went out to these people, because that seemed to be a big problem in this situation. So I talked to some adoption experts, and we don't have any adopted children in my family, and I've never had to adopt a child out. But I talked to them about, you know, what happens, what is the sort of conclusion when all these people get together. And he said, well, so it's very similar to what happened in my story. So he's a South Korean man. When he was 2 years old, his mother adopted him out, and she sent him to a Christian ministry because she and her boyfriend broke up, and she could not take care of Cameron by herself. So Cameron is then adopted out in Minneapolis. And so he has these wonderful adoptive parents, and he has this nice town that he's growing up in, but he's the only South Korean kid, you know, for miles. So he's having like identity issues. Sure. People are saying to him, why don't you look like your mom and dad? So he finally found his birth mother, and he thought, you know, I got to go see her. So he asked her if she would meet with him. She said yes. So he went out there to meet her. And she didn't show up. And he waited the next day, and she didn't show up. And he waited 2 weeks, and she did not show up, even though she had agreed to meet with him. And he said, you know, I tell you that just to let you know that there is so much old feeling left in a birth mother, so much guilt, that this is not always a happy union, you know. And this is why when Radha finally meets Nikki, it's not like, oh, let's all hug and be happy. You know, it brings up a lot of feelings for her, and they're not all kumbaya. So, I was so grateful to that adoption counselor to let me know about this kind of thing, because I thought, okay, that lets me know what's going to happen when Radha finally meets her son.
I think you were very compassionate in how you went about exploring that with Radha. And I think that any situation like that is going to be, you know, it has the potential for absolutely wrecking your heart and absolutely fulfilling it at the same time. And you just never know which way it could go. And there's even so it's not one or the other. Sometimes it's a mixed bag. And I think that you did a phenomenal job of really exploring that.
Thank you. Very well. And I'm getting a lot of you know, emails from readers saying, oh, thank you, because either they were adoptees or they were a birth mother. And it's really wonderful to, you know, to hear people saying thanks, you know, for first of all attacking this particular issue, but then also, you know, doing it in such a way that nobody comes out you know, harmed or having a finger pointed at them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were very compassionate about it. I think that was really well done. There's a few more comments here. I'm just going to kind of go back up and read through. So Air said, I love hearing about all the research you put into these books. Cindy, hi Cindy. And the fact that her son looks like her old boyfriend. Yeah, that would be a trip.
You know, I wrote parts of the novel so that Radha would get a chance to confront Ravi, her old boyfriend, and be able to say to him, you know, you really left me in the lurch. That was not fair. It wasn't nice. I felt all alone. I didn't have anybody to help me. So I had one of those scenes. I wrote it out. And, you know, it just seems so like, I don't know, kind of melodramatic. And so I left that out and I went in a different direction with Radha. So
I wondered if you would explore that or not. I was kind of like waiting for it.
Yeah.
But on the one, like while I was waiting for it, I was also kind of like nervous about it because I felt like it wouldn't have gone the way Radha would have wanted it. You know, like I just feel like he would not have been compassionate or gracious or understanding or empathetic at all.
Right. Right.
So.
Right. And, you know, as we know, I think he drinks a lot now, right? I mean, we know he's a philanderer and we know he's not good with money. We've learned that in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. And now he's, you know, he's kind of drinking a little too much. So, yeah, not a guy I want in my life.
No, definitely not. Well, while we're trying to get Leyla back on here, she must be having some connectivity issues. I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question too. Radha begins to mature more after having heart-to-hearts with key figures in her life. Lakshmi, whom she was embittered towards, Sheila, her old childhood nemesis, and Florence, her mother-in-law, who always seemed to be so judgmental. How do each of these revelations push Radha to embrace what she wants in life and release the guilt and fear preventing her from achieving it?
Oh, wow. That is a really good question. I don't think I've ever had that question before. And also the fact that you recognize these three people that she has a changed relationship with now, that's really interesting. Okay, let me think about that. So Radha has, so Florence. Okay, let's start with Florence. With Florence, I think what happened is that she realized that Florence is lonely, that Florence really wants a relationship with her granddaughters and with Pierre. And, you know, even with Radha, she wants that sweet relationship. And she doesn't have it. And this is why she gives Radha such a hard time. And I think as soon as Radha realizes Florence is lonely, she just wants to be incorporated into our life, I think the tension diffuses between them. And then Radha realizes, okay, you know what, I need her. First of all, I need her to help with the girls, but also now I think I need her as a friend in my life. So that was, you know, with Florence. With Sheila, I think it was more of a, you know, a business arrangement, but a business arrangement that taught Radha that even Sheila is, you know, the golden girl, the girl who had everything. Even she is going through her own hardships in her relationship, and that she's trying to make something of herself. She's trying to also get something that is just her own, just like Radha is trying to do. And then Mathilde, what was it? Was that the third one? Which one was the third one?
Lakshmi. So like in the story, you know, she felt all these, like she loves Lakshmi, obviously, but she also feels a little embittered towards her for, you know, just these perceived things.
Yeah. And I think that Lakshmi takes her for a walk around the night market in Agra. And I think she's trying to tell Radha that she's sorry. She's sorry that she didn't respect Radha enough, that she made her feel guilty, and that she accepts responsibility for not taking good enough care of Radha and looking out for her, which is why, you know, she turned toward Ravi and got pregnant in the first place. So it's interesting how when these women actually start talking to one another, a lot of the animosity that they're feeling dissipates. And when they talk to each other, they also find their common grounds, places where they can, where they realize they have the same goals. And that really brings them all together, brings them together as well.
Yeah, I think they I think she sees some of the parallels, especially when Florence explained kind of her background, and it was kind of like almost like a light bulb moment for Radha, I thought. I think that was the one that kind of struck me the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
character development was so good. And I thought it was really beautiful how Florence embraced Radha's child. Like, that was just so beautiful.
Yeah. And she's the first one to recognize that Nikki is her son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she doesn't say anything to Pierre. She keeps that information to herself. And Florence, you know, offers to have Nikki stay at her house, which was huge. I mean, that was huge. She recognizes this is Radha's son, and she better get him out of this situation before it blows up. So yeah, I love the way that Florence came together for Radha. And by the way, you know, so much of what happens with our characters, when we get to know them this well, we don't have any control over. I didn't know Florence was going to do that. I didn't know she was going to offer to have Nikki come to her house. I did know that as soon as she walked in that door, and she's been with the girls all day, as soon as she walked in that door, I knew that she was going to know who Nikki was. Pierre is kind of clueless, right? But she recognizes, you know, the eyes and, you know, the mouth, the nose, you know, she's like, oh my gosh, she looks just like Radha. So.
Like you can almost see like the scene in your head, and you're just watching her eyes go back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like I was there, like in an awkward moment.
Yeah.
But hey, hashtag women supporting women. So
yeah.
That's so cool. Should I not have said that? Leyla, I'll let you take next question, hon, before you go out.
Sorry, I was having technical issues with my phone. So, yes.
That's
Can you give us any updates on the Netflix adaptation that you can share with us? Have they started filming? And is Frida Pinto still set to be Lakishma?
Yes. So Frida is, yeah. So the producers are, you know, Michael Edelstein, and Frida Pinto is one of the producers, and yes, she is going to play Lakshmi. So she came with the package, so that, you know, she's embedded in that. And then also Miramax TV is the third producer. So all of those producers together, they went and pitched different streaming sources, streaming companies, and Netflix won out. So Netflix is developing it. But as you know, they have recently had these writer's strike, and the actors have joined in. It's getting to be a really big strike. And, you know, part of the strike has to do with how much money are the streaming companies now paying for productions, and how there's some, I don't really understand it, but there's some way that streaming companies are able to pay less to writers at this point, and less to actors. And so I think that's kind of what the strike is about. But in any case, both Frida and Michael have assured me that when everything is back to normal, they are still working on and very committed to the Henna Artist production.
So will the movie
just
be the Henna Artist?
And we can expect it?
I don't have any, you know, hard and fast deadlines or anything like that. Let's see, somebody just asked a question that I was going to answer.
I said, will it just be the first book?
Okay, yes. It's just the first book, and it will be 6 to 8 episodes of that first book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would rather have episodes because I'm such a binge whore. I just like to binge.
Me too.
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about us? You know, I tell myself, okay, I'm just going to watch 2 tonight. And then I go, well, maybe just 1 more. Oh, look, there's only 1 left, so I may as well watch that one too.
I think we've all gotten sucked into that story.
Yeah, and it's that last cliffhanger that gets you like, okay, I really need to go to bed. But like, no, just 1 more.
Yes. My eyes are starting to close but I just have 30 minutes left. I can do this.
I do the same thing when I'm reading your books. I'm like, just 1 more chapter.
Yes.
Yep.
That's
yeah. You know,
my husband's like, it's time. It's time.
Yeah.
Turn off the light.
I just read in the New York Times today that we women, when we don't get enough sleep, all kinds of things go wrong with us hormonally and all of that. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I should start going to bed like at 9 o'clock. And then you know what? The 9 o'clock comes and I'm like, no, I want to watch one more episode of this.
I think I've seen something similar to that, but yeah, it doesn't, I mean, up here, I know it, but right here, I just want to keep watching or reading or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, just heading back to, there's a comment from Cindy, because going back to our previous conversation, that last question with the revelations with Lakshmi and Sheila and Florence. Cindy says, I love that twist that his wife's nemesis is a benefactor to spite the husband, but also to help her talent, Radha's talent.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool too, because it's dual facts. It's not just Sheila and her husband but it's also Florence's son, who is now also a nemesis of sorts, and the same thing happens. So that's a really good thing to bring up, Cindy.
Yeah. I mean, all of these characters are so alive in my mind. And when I write these scenes, they are actually like, I am envisioning the whole scene in front of me, and they're moving here and doing that and having a drink here. And, I just write it all down. I just see it and I'm just writing it all down. I'm like, okay, don't go away before I have a chance to write this paragraph.
You're kind of just channeling them, really. I mean, I love that you were like, I didn't know that Florence was going to do that when she took in Mickey. Like, I didn't know she was going to do that,
right.
And she did it.
Right. There are, as I write also, I have placeholders that I have to put in. For example, if I say, they got in a car and went somewhere, I have to look and see if in that time period, like let's say 1974, what cars were being driven around in Paris. I can't just put in a Ford, right? It doesn't make any sense. So, so I put a placeholder there, look up cars, in Paris. And then I just continue on with the story. So all throughout my narrative, as I'm typing this in, there'll be these placeholder, where I have to do the research and make it sound authentic. I don't want anybody to ever read one of my books and go, wait, that would never have happened in 1955.
Didn't exist yet. That's hilarious. Okay, so the question on everybody's mind, just to kind of wrap things up, because I know we're getting close to time, and I have to ask this because people will kill me if I don't. What can you tell us about your next book?
Oh, okay. So, the editor has called it The Painter. And, really, my editors at HarperCollins, they're the ones that make up all my titles. I have nothing to do with my titles. So they're calling this one The Painter, although I don't know. I don't know if that's where we'll end up. So we are in 1937. We start in Bombay, where there is a famous painter who has come in to be treated, and she's in an emergency situation. There is a nurse who is half English and half Indian who is assigned to work for her. The painter is half Czech Jew and half Indian herself. So the two of them have this kind of bond where they're half-half. They feel like they're half-half. And over the course of 6 days, the painter tells the nurse all kinds of stories about her life and tells her about 3 central people in her life. On the 6th day, the painter dies. And it's very unexpected, because she was supposed to be getting better, but she kept getting worse. So now the nurse, through a whole series of incidents, ends up taking 3 sketches that the painter had done, and a direction from the painter, deliver these to the 3 people. So the nurse has to go to Prague, Florence, and Paris. Each of the central people in the painter's life are living there, and she has to deliver these sketches, but also try to discover what happened to the painter. Why did she die so young? She was only 29. And she is based on a real life painter, India's Frida Kahlo, and her name was Amrita Sher Gill, and she also died very young. I think she was 28 or so when she died, and died in 1941, which is why this story is taking place in the period between the two wars.
Oh, well, I'm hooked. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm in.
And
That sounds fascinating.
yeah, and once again, what I'm doing is I'm combining art with the story. I'm always trying to combine art with the story because my background, my art history degree is my bachelor's, right? So I have studied art all over, and I can't seem to write a book without putting art into it. Like I remember in the henna artist, you know, all of the designs that Lakshmi drew, they're from my imagination. They're just from my, you know, ideas about what somebody should draw if they were painting henna. It's not actually done the way Lakshmi's doing it, but, you know, I just make up these things because I'm thinking about all the art that I have seen in my life, and I want to, you know, just put that out there. I can't seem to think without art. I can't seem to do it.
Well, I think that's an admirable quality to have. I didn't know that you had a art history degree. That's really cool.
Yeah. You know, one of those degrees that you can do a lot with.
Hey, it makes interesting conversation, and it gives you plenty of information for your books.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, I was curious to see if, because when I heard your working title for this book, I almost wondered if you were kind of taking off with the whole like model aspect, you know, like from Olympia, and just kind of telling the stories of these women from the painting.
Oh, there's an idea maybe for a future book. Wow.
Book 5 right there.
Wow.
And now here's, I love this, Kristen. What if these women all know each other? What if there are 4 women in that time period who are models for Impressionist painters, and they know each other, and they do something together, like to say, hey, we exist. Ooh, I like that.
I think you're the perfect person to write this. Really
Leyla, what did you say?
I said, I think you need to bookmark this idea.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm looking for an idea for book number 5. So I think this might be a good one.
This could be, yeah. I think you should. That would be so cool. And then I can say, I helped with that.
Yeah. Remind me when I start working on book number 5, say, Alka, do you remember this thing I told you?
I will email you. I'll let you know. No, I think you'd be the perfect person to write something like that, because you're passionate about telling women's stories throughout history, and you have that added bonus of your art history degree. I think that you are perfect for that. So I hope that you do something like that. That would be really cool.
All right. Ladies, thank you so much
for
hosting me today. This has been a really fun conversation. I don't usually get to be so freeform. I love it.
Well, we are so grateful that you could come back and join us, and hopefully, you know, once you get the painter written, maybe you can come back after that one too. We'd love to have you back. It's always a joy talking to you.
Yeah.
All right,
Alkia, it was a pleasure meeting you. I know I had a chance to meet Alka in person when she had a book signing here in LA, and I have to say it was a pleasure meeting you and just hearing the background of, and like the whole history of how the 3 books and the trilogy all came about. And I just, like I said, big admirer and fan over here, and just listening to your books, you're such a great storyteller.
Thank you.
And we're all definitely looking forward to book number 4.
Oh, excellent. And isn't the audiobook amazing? I don't know how many of you guys have listened to the audiobook, but the narrator is amazing, and she pronounces all the Hindi words and the French words beautifully. Yeah, she really brings it to life. So a lot of my readers keep telling me, you know what, I didn't have time to read the book, so I listened to it on my commute, and I could not step away because she's such a good narrator. Yeah.
I listened to the audios and I agree. They're really good.
Oh, and look, the Obsessed already said, yes, I agree.
Yes, I think that, yeah, I've heard great things. I did not get to listen to the audio, but I really want to go back and listen to it.
Oh,
but
cool.
Yeah, I'm super, super excited for book 4. I can't wait to see what you do. And I thank you so, so much for being with us tonight. It was such a pleasure to have you, as always.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Leyla. All right, guys. Buy my books, please.
Always.
Of course.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.